Human design. Have you dove in yet? We're obsessed with it here on Bus Bunch Babes. And today we have a really special guest, Maggie Hilpisch. She is a human design expert, and she is going to talk all about how this relates to your real estate business and how you can use it as a tool in business and in life. This conversation is packed with so much awesome information and resources, and we think you are going to love it and be able to take your business to the next level with it. Let's dive in. You're listening to the Girl Get Your Face Off a Bus Bench podcast, where we invite you to check your ego at the app, grab a cup of coffee, and get ready to dive into all things real estate marketing, social media, friendship, hardship, love, money mindset, and all the things that celebrate you as a badass boss babe.
We're here to encourage you, show up for you, give you a loving kick in the pants when you need it most, and be your soft place to land on the hardest of days. So pull up a seat at our table and get ready to be inspired and start living your best life by design.
Welcome to the Girl Get Your Face Off a Bus Bench podcast. We are so excited you're here.
Okay, girls, let's dive in. All right, Bus Bench Babes, we have a super fun episode for you today. I have a new friend to me, Maggie Hilpisch, and she is a human design expert. And we're going to talk we've had human design experts on before. Yeah. We're going to talk all about how human design and how it relates in the real estate space. And I met Maggie through like the ultimate connector. Jess Windsor is a local, she's like a kind of like a celebrity here in the Twin Cities, I would say, another gal in the real estate space. And she knows everybody. And anytime I'm like, hey, Jess, do you know someone in blah, blah, blah? And she's like, well, of course I do. And I'm like, of course you do. So she introduced us, and you and I have done some sessions together, and we met for coffee and like hit it off immediately. And Mark and I have done a session with you. And I love your approach to human design. You make it super relatable, and you like with really like great applicable approaches to like how I can incorporate it in my life. So that's why we wanted to have you on the podcast today. So thanks for being here, Maggie.
Oh my gosh. Thank you for the sweet intro and the invitation.
Well, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I'm a human design guide and facilitator. I've been studying human design for the last 4.5 years. But I always joke that I had one foot on the ground and one foot in the cloud. So I did the traditional route. I went to college. I got the degree. I thought I was going to go into marriage counseling, ended up in finance, then moved to tech. I've kind of been all around in this corporate space, found myself in the real estate world. But always I was into mindfulness practices. I taught yoga. And so human design really kind of fit into that realm. And so I'm really passionate about bridging these worlds. And that's why, I ended up being introduced to you, and we'll talk more about how human design has entered the real estate world. But that's a little bit about me in a very, very kind of condensed nutshell. I now run my own business where I do human design facilitation and sessions for individuals and teams and workshops. I'm a mom of 3 young boys. I have a set of identical twins, and then another son. And yeah, life is wild and crazy.
I love that.
I love it too. This is great.
It'll keep you out of trouble though, running after 3 little boys. That's for sure.
Oh my gosh, it's a full-time job for sure.
Yeah. So what got you into human design? Like, what did that look like? How did you get started with it? Because our listeners are probably at this point really familiar with it because you've been talking about it for so long.
It all the time.
But we didn't know about it really until a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, such a good question. So I had taken a course in 2017, I think it was, all around law of attraction and how your thoughts create your reality. And there were several people in that group who were into human design. And I had pulled my chart at that point, had no idea what it meant. If you've never pulled your chart before, it's like reading a different language, right? And so I took one look at it, thought, nope, put it away. And then I didn't pull my chart again for another few years. And gosh, I don't know why. I think I honestly saw someone post something on Instagram, and I thought, interesting. I know I pulled that once. I wonder what I am. And it was just the right time. I always think when the information resonates, it's the right time for you to dive in. And I was hooked. So from that point on, I gave every free second that I had to learning human design.
Oh, wow.
It's so cool.
Yeah, it's so cool.
Well, we've been like a lot of our followers have asked us about it. I know a lot of people have been diving into it. So if anyone's listening and they want more information, we do have episode 47. We have Human Design, How It Can Change Your Life with Katrina Widener. So go back and check out that episode if you listen to this one and you're like, I want to hear more. So we've got more episodes on human design.
Yeah.
But you want to do I'll do the next one. How did you get into like putting human design into like the real estate space?
Yeah, kind of a wild story. So I had been working with a local real estate firm since 2016. And when I found out I was pregnant with my twins, our son at the time was a year old. So I knew when they were born, I was going to need to take some time off just to figure out what the heck life was going to look like. At that point, I was already pretty deep into studying human design. And so when the twins were born, I took a year and a half off. And right before they were born, I joined a year-long mastermind around advanced human design. I dove all in. I spent every free moment that I had with those twins learning human design. And so when it was time to come back to work, when I started to really feel that energy behind, I'm ready to get back into the workforce. I'm ready to put my gifts to use. And I knew I couldn't do something without human design being a part of it, because at that point it had changed my life so much. I had been doing sessions, I had been watching transformation in other people. And so I pitched the idea to the brokers at this firm that I was working at. And I think that it worked because I had already had such trust and rapport built with them that they were like, okay, this is kind of out there. This is kind of wild, but let's try it. And we went in so open-minded. Like, if 3 people use this and after 3 or 4 months, we're not seeing any traction, this is just going to fall away. And then we can make some other decisions. But the exact opposite happened. And it was actually kind of overwhelming. I wasn't anticipating the response that we had right out of the gate. And so I spent the first 4 or 5 months doing 6+ sessions a week for the agents at this firm. They got unlimited access to sessions, which were hour-long one-on-ones or team sessions as part of being there. And we ended up with 80% adoption rate and a really steady stream of agents coming through the door to deepen their work with this.
Wow.
It's so cool.
That I love so much that you're once I learned about it, I was hooked, because I feel like once you see it, you can't unsee it.
Mm-hmm.
It is so relatable. And once you understand, well, at least a portion of your birth chart, I feel like such a newbie, even doing this for a few years, it makes so much sense. And it gives you this power, this fuel to move forward. So that really just makes a lot of sense that once you did it, you got hooked.
Yes. Oh, and I'll just say too, 4.5 years into studying and experimenting with my own design, the more I know, the less I feel like I know. So you're not alone. It's like one of those, those dolls where, you open it up and then there's another one and there's another one and there's another one. There's always deeper layers. Yeah. You could spend a lifetime studying it. And I always say that if we get to choose what we believe in this life, I choose systems like human design, at least right now, because it's so fun. And it's experiential and you can really see it play out in your life. And it's just it makes life a little bit more enjoyable to play with.
Yeah.
I think of human design as leaning more on the woo-woo side. So I am so impressed that you got 80% adoption from your real estate brokerage. That is kind of a mind-blowing stat that a bunch of sometimes cynical type people would jump on board with this. I love that. Share how working with real estate agents, what did it do? How did it change their businesses and hopefully change their lives?
I think the most surprising thing right off the bat was the very tangible retention that we saw. And I think what I can attribute that to is people felt seen and heard in an environment at a level that they've never experienced before. We joked that my office was the therapy cave, and I'm not a therapist. I'm not at all, not even remotely qualified, but people would come in expecting to talk about their metrics and their goals, and they would leave having shed tears and talked about their marriages and their children and their relationships and their imposter syndrome. And I think we gave them a place to come and voice those parts of themselves and get it out on the table so that they could figure out how to work with it. And in doing so, as a byproduct, they started showing up for their businesses in a different way, or for their relationships in a different way. And I'm definitely of the belief that when you transform how you view yourself and how you show up in the world, your business transformation is a byproduct of that. So
That's so cool.
That was the most surprising thing.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
Sorry for the ding. I literally just put my computer on Do Not Disturb, and
Here,
it's still
it's right here.
dinging.
It's right here.
I just did it.
We got it. We got it. We're all good.
It's good. We're good. We're rolling, baby.
Yeah, this is like up there with, okay.
You're like, stressful.
How many can I drop in this podcast? Is that? Let me just. No, we've got.
Oh, now we've got the fucking lawnmowers in the yard. Oh my God. This is hilarious because this is the stuff that makes podcasts so fun. Is that, yeah, we've had internet issues, and Maggie's like been so gracious to like hang on here, and now we have the lawnmowers in the backyard. Like, this is real life, people. This is moment to moment.
Internet modem number 2, computer number 2, and now we have lawn issues. This is fantastic. So we're moving through it because we're that whatever you just said, Maggie, about that we moved through. Right?
Yes. You two have the channel of the beat. You share that. It's the 14-2. It's like we're moving forward in this direction.
Moving forward. Okay.
Exactly. That's exactly what we're doing.
So what are the major shifts you've seen in agents, like in their actual business, once they identify their human design and what it is, and they have a little bit, at least, of an understanding of it?
Yes. Okay. I have 3 examples. One was an agent that I worked with, who, gosh, it's not just human design, but there was so much that was going into her inner work around how do I show up? How do I want to run my business? What clients do I want to work with? What kind of work-life blending, if that's possible, can I have here? And she really went all in on it. And, this was in 2023. She had the best year of her career. And, 2023 was a challenging year, at least here in Minnesota for agents, for many agents. And she just knocked it out of the park. And again, I don't think human design is the only thing, but I think it was such permission for her to run her business how she wanted to run her business, choose which client she was going to say yes and no to, structure her day. There was just a level of confidence that came with that. So that was a really cool success story. Another one was one of our agents she has a 4 in her profile, and we can talk about that. Both of you have that too. And we spent a lot of time diving into the importance of her network and her people, and being excited around with who she surrounds herself with. And so she ended up starting a women's networking group, but not a traditional, like you meet at 8 a.m. on a, weekday morning, a very non-traditional women's group that she's been really successfully running now for the last year or so. And it's a great pipeline for her, but it's also a great way for her to direct her energy and give back and contribute in a different way, foster community beyond just her role as a real estate agent. And that's been going really, really well for her. And then a third is an agent who we talked a lot about, where does her energy actually want to go? Who does she want to serve? Like where is she feeling in her body that she wants to serve? And for her, that looked like going all in on her niching all the way down, like very, very specific, and being brave enough to show up every single day saying, this is who I serve. And then starting to refer out or say no to those other clients who maybe didn't fit the bill. And that is starting to really pay off for her too, because now people know her for this very specific niche, and she's feeling a confidence and just a sense of self that she didn't have. Maybe she had it before, but it's just been refined and amplified throughout this process. And so much of that for the two of you as generators, like, where does your energy want to go? That's that simple question.
So I love it.
The coolest, like for me, like I get goosebumps when you say it gives you the permission, right, to really be yourself and operate as yourself, and that to show you that, oh no, I can have success even though I'm wired a little bit differently than I'm being told to operate, right? So that just like gives me
It's
goosebumps
really cool.
when you say that, especially sharing those examples, because wow, that is life-changing, because you can wake up and be you. You can put yourself out there and have a successful business and not conform to what someone else is doing necessarily to do that.
I think that's why I love human design in the real estate world so much, because when I look at real estate, residential real estate specifically, from kind of a backed up generalized lens, it can be very homogenized. There's very specific metrics to hit. There's very specific activities to do. And if some of those activities don't work well for you, does that have you questioning your abilities, or whether or not you're good enough or cut out for it? Or maybe you start to get bitter or resentful, when really maybe it's, okay, maybe we just need to look at this from a different lens. Maybe you need to be putting your marketing dollars in a different place. Maybe you need to be niching down, because who you're serving isn't who you actually have the energy to serve. And so it's taking a very unique, differentiated system like human design, plopping it into a seemingly homogenized industry like real estate, and giving people that permission.
Are you like over here raising your hand?
I know that was like so beautifully and eloquently stated. Because I think when people think of human design, I think a lot of people generalize it as like hippy dippy woo woo stuff. And maybe like, oh, this is going to make my life better and I'm going to show up as a happier spouse or whatever. But to be able to take this and really use it as a tool to craft how you want your career to look. And this doesn't even have to just relate to real estate. Like anyone listening to this podcast, like especially an entrepreneur, it can be so frustrating. Like that was 3 really awesome examples of how people could really take this and use it as a tool that I think that sometimes I don't even think about it in that way.
You're making me want to get to work right now, which is like we're podcast recording. Like I want to dive into something. Like I'm like, yes, exactly. I'm like, let's go do this my way. Like, it feels so good to hear this and to hear those real life success stories with it too. That's so cool. And it's more than just human design. Like you mentioned, it's the combination of everything, right?
Yeah. What I'm finding with human design is that it opens a doorway to a conversation that maybe wouldn't have otherwise happened. There's something about using this tool that's kind of like learning a different language, and we're calling things like your sacral center. And this is, you've got the gate of, I don't know, wanting, or the gate, whatever, these different pieces. And people are like, oh, that's interesting. They don't really have a lot of ties to it. So there's this curiosity, there's this doorway that opens, and suddenly we're getting into these really deep conversations. And there's more of a curiosity than like a vulnerability or a fear or a resistance to it, because it's just so different. It's just something so different than people have heard before. So it's just fostered such rich communication, and it's given people language and words to describe their human experience that maybe they couldn't have found otherwise. And that at least is very true for me. I mean, human design explained so much about my energy that I couldn't find words for, and I couldn't even grasp.
Yes. And I love that the actual birth chart, I love that it's a visual. So if you're like a visual creative person, you can actually it makes it make sense, right? Like when you talk about like your heart center or like your head center, that kind of thing, it's a thing you can actually look at, which is very helpful for me instead of just a chart with a bunch of like words and numbers. It really makes it all make sense, and how it's like all encompassing, really.
Yeah. Well, and you two have been using human design in your work and your business for the last couple of years. Is there something specific that has been really impactful or beneficial for the two of you?
Ooh, we're getting interviewed now, Beth.
Well, I love it. We've talked about on the podcast before so Christy's she dove in with her business coach, who's been doing human design for like 5 years now?
When I started working with her about 5 years ago, 5.5, 5 years.
So you found out that you're sacral? No,
I found out a lot. I'm generator, sacral.
But then you didn't know what I was or Ryan.
Yes.
So like how Christy makes decisions as what? Sacral?
Sacral.
and then how I make decisions.
Very
Like I was
different.
frustrating the shit out of her. And then she had my chart read and she's like, oh, and then her husband, Ryan, and I
And
make
my
decisions
daughter.
the same way.
And my daughter.
And so now she's giving us grace, just knowing that, okay, we don't make decisions like she does. And so she's like, I'll circle back with you tomorrow when you have an answer. And I'm like, well, thank you.
It has been really changing because just knowing how we operate differently, but also how our not missing links, but like how we connect, like in the way that we work together, and how that actually makes sense. Like why we're doing this makes sense. If you look at our charts, which is really pretty cool. It's really taught me a lot, you a lot, right?
Yeah.
As far as how to work together and to have grace and patience in areas, especially with the emotional decision making, which is still hard to this day for me. I'm like, well, can't you just ask yourself yes or no and then get an I don't know if you just have an I don't know?
I'm like, nope.
And then the roller coaster.
Nope.
So yes, we have.
Sure can.
In our work, it's helped so much. And a friendship too, right? And how that has crossed over into like personal lives is very different. So yeah.
So good. Well, and for those listening, Beth, you have what's called emotional authority, which asks for time and space. And Christy, you have sacral authority, which is that kind of gut feeling in the now, trusting your gut and trusting your instincts. And Beth, yours specifically it's a design of moodiness. Like, are you in the mood or not? Are you in the mood to make that decision or not? Are you in a high? Are you in a low? Are you clouded with other things and you can't see the answer clearly? Maybe you need to sleep on it. Maybe you need a couple days. Maybe you need a walk.
100%. Yeah.
And that can cause friction if you don't know that as somebody, but neither of you are wrong.
Yeah, which is also the beautiful piece of it too, right? It's like you can use these as superpowers once you know, right? It's like, oh, we know this. So now the frustration doesn't, even if it exists for like maybe a split second, right? It doesn't need to continue to exist or affect the work that we're doing. It can actually like make it even better. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
I think we've used it for sure to make things better, but like I feel like I'm barely just scratching the surface. Every time I read, I pull up my little app thing on my phone. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. I just was reading something this morning. I told Christy, I'm like, it said my strongest scent is smell. And I'm like, I'm obsessed. Like when I walk into like a luxury hotel and I can smell like their brand, everyone else is like, I don't even know what you're talking about. And I'm like, oh my God.
That you just said smell a brand. This is making
it evokes an emotion in me. Like, yeah, we were
which is why they're doing it.
Yeah, we were at Kohler earlier this week in Wisconsin. And I walked in and I'm like, oh, their brand smell is on point. I'm obsessed. And my husband Mark's like, what? It's like just right over his head. But I'm like, oh, I guess that makes sense.
Oh, so good. Kohler's so beautiful. Now it is interesting that you say that because I hope it's okay that I bring this up, but we were just talking about clearing the energy in the spaces of homes. Right. The homes that you sell or the homes that you're in, and think about, like saging or smudging or energy clearing a home. Like you're so finely tuned to that. You're attuned to that sense, to that smell, to how do we make this experience feel better for the people coming in or the people leaving?
Yeah.
I literally couldn't agree more. How do have you seen like some really awesome examples of like the old brokerage that you were at with like people using human design to build teams? Because I know like how impactful that's been for us. Have you seen that with other examples that you just feel really proud of?
Such a good question. The brokerage that I came from really didn't have a ton of teams, but I do have some examples that I can talk to. One was there was a team and there was some communication issues that we identified. I had just started and this team was one of the first teams I started working with. And so much was resolved simply by us getting in the room, talking about everyone's designs. They were all such different individuals. And then almost facilitating those conversations using human design as the lens that we would return to. And that fostered so much openness, so much clear communication, honestly, a lot of compassion and kindness for each other. And so when it came time to make decisions around whether that team should stay together or not, they brought me in and we worked together like week after week to have those tough conversations in a way that was honorable and respectful and kind and amicable. And what I learned from that experience specifically, though it's not the most like, rah, big success story, is that so many of us don't know how to communicate with each other. Mm-hmm. And this tool is a communication tool more than anything. Number one thing I saw was increased communication. And that makes people have more compassion for one another, more respect for one another. And that I think was so powerful to see. But I've also done this for teams outside of the real estate industry. And I've seen some really cool things happen there where teams have reallocated roles because through our conversations, we've uncovered that this person over here who's doing operations actually has a huge passion for marketing, but really felt like she didn't have the capacity or the permission to step up. So one of the teams I work with actually, they stopped working with a contractor they were paying $3,000 a month, and they reallocated funds to promote this employee into this more marketing operations role. And so she's happier, the business is saving money, and they brought things in-house. So there's some really cool stories that can happen there. And what it does, I think more than anything, is that open communication that allows us to get there.
That's such a neat way of looking at it as a communication tool, really.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I mean, that's, I feel what it's helped with you and I, where you're like, I'm going to kill her. I'm going to kill her.
I just want an answer. And you just, like, I can't. Or then it's the wrong answer. You can give one, but it's not the answer.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, maybe 50-50. Maybe.
Well, and those of us who study human design, I mean, we're all coming with our own bias and our own lens too. So somebody who's a strategist, a marketing or a business strategist who learns human design, they're going to see this system through that lens, and they're going to help you with strategy through the lens of human design. I come to human design with a communication background and, thinking I was going to be a marriage therapist for a marriage counselor. And so I'm seeing this as a communication tool. And how do we deepen our relationships using something like this? So we all come with our own little flavors. And that is really how I share human design.
That's so cool. Well, so once someone figures out what their human design is, how do you take that and use it as a tool to help move their business forward?
Such a good question. Learning human design and learning about your design is not an overnight thing. Right? It's not something you pull your chart, you have all the answers, and you go out and you implement. I like to think about this as kind of a lifelong journey that you embark on when you first pull your chart. And a lot of that starts with type. Type, if you have taken any personality test before, I always think about type as like that one answer. You're Enneagram 9, you're a generator, you're a manifesting generator, whatever that is. And really starting to understand the concept of what that is for you and playing with that first. I think that can start to have those transformative effects. And then you can dive deeper as you get more into your experiment of human design. And what I'd love to talk about is the auras of the 5 human design types, because I think that's something really tangible that you can start to play with right away. Is that okay?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Please.
Okay, amazing. So in human design, we look at, there's roughly 5 types. There's a generator, a manifesting generator. I think of those as cool cousins. And then there's the projector, the manifester, and the reflector. And they all have different auras. And aura is really how people receive you. And when you walk in a room, what are they feeling? And the manifesting generator and the generator, which make up about 70% of the population. So the majority of us listening to this, you have what's called an open and enveloping aura. I always spread my arms really wide when I talk about this. You are out here scooping up people and experiences and opportunities and then drawing them towards you. And what that does is it makes you a really easy read energetically. And so starting with knowing that, for manifesting generators and generators, one of the best things you can do for your business, for your life, is to really pay attention to what you have the energy for. I see a lot of exhausted generators who are showing up day after day thinking that they're doing good work, or like, if I just keep showing up, or I'll take that on, I'll be a team player. Well, what you're actually doing is you're impacting everybody else around you. because everybody else can read you, even if you think you're good at hiding it. And so get your energy right. Do the self-care practices. Get your exercise in if you can. Like take an energy audit. What's draining your energy? What's fueling your energy? How do we start to move more towards the stuff that's fueling you? Because the thing you need to know is that when you do that, everyone around you benefits. Mm-hmm. Everybody in my household is a generator, a manifesting generator. When my husband is prioritizing the things he actually has the energy for and he cares about, everybody else in this house benefits. Do you two feel that? Because you're both generators?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like a strategic, it's not like a go and do this or do that, but it's, I want you to really tune into your body and what do you have the energy for? And maybe you have no energy. Okay, well, that's a sign too. So what can we do? How can we start to really care for yourself? How do you put that oxygen mask on for yourself and get your energy right? Because when that happens, everything else for a generator, manifesting generator starts to flow a little bit easier.
So cool.
Yeah, it's true. It's definitely true.
Yeah. Again, I think I've worked for individuals before, been in environments where people are they're miserable, but they're still showing up. Okay, we need to make some changes because that's impacting the entire environment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Projectors are about 20% of the population. They're the guides and the seers of the chart. And they have what's called a penetrating aura. It's like a laser beam aura. And so they do really well when they get one-on-one with somebody. They are prone to giving unsolicited advice. And because they can see so clearly into other people, they can read somebody really, really well. And then giving advice without permission, unsolicited advice, what that can do for somebody who's maybe not ready for it is it just turns them off. And so if you are a real estate agent and you're a projector, take the seat of the observer, ask great questions, ask permission to offer some guidance. Like, do you want advice or just want me to listen in this situation? Would you like my opinion on this? Those types of simple things can really help ease that intensity that your energy brings to the table. And then also getting into those one-on-one coffees, having the one-on-one Zoom calls, anytime where you can really be with that individual is a great use of your energy. Manifestors have what's called it's called a repelling aura, which sounds so terrible. It's like a protected aura. Manifestors are about 10% of the population, and they're really our fire starters. They're the ones who are here to make stuff happen. They can really make manifest the things that they have the energy for. And there's a protected energy around them because they're bringing things to the table that we haven't experienced before. And so their strategy is this idea of informing, because they're kind of a hard read energetically, where you as a generator MMG are really easy to read. They're a hard read. And so people get confused or they can misjudge them. Manifestors can often feel misunderstood. And so their strategy is letting people in, informing them, letting them know what they're up to. Hey, clients, I'm going to let you know I'm going to be on vacation, or hey, I'm going to let you know that I'm going to call you as soon as I hear about this. It's just those simple, here's my intention, here's what I'm up to, that eases the pressure on the other side. And then we have our reflectors. They are 1% of the population, very rare. And they have what's called a sampling aura. They are really typically very easy to be around energetically. But they need to pay really close attention to how they feel in certain environments. So for a reflector, if you're in an office or in a team or with clients and you feel off, you feel all of a sudden heavy, lethargic, anxious, fearful, it's a really good practice for you to start paying close attention to how you're feeling and start to adjust your environments accordingly. But also knowing that you are really quite an easy and gentle energy to be around. And you are here to really see and assess the truth in situations. So you might have a couple who's arguing over something, but you see the truth behind it all. And offering that perspective and that wisdom is really going to help them move forward.
I have a friend who is a reflector, and that would describe him
really
fully. Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah, that's really fascinating. Yeah.
It's so awesome.
What's the most rewarding part about what you do here?
The connections I make with people in session.
Oh, cool.
And watching them leave our time together with a really deeper sense of self, a deeper sense of gratitude for who they are and their differences and their uniqueness and what they bring to the table. I love that experience.
What is your, what are you a generator?
No, I'm a projector.
You're a projector. Oh.
I find that projectors are really drawn to learning this system because we are the guides and the seers. We're generators and manifesting generators. They're really here to know themselves. You're here. Your journey is to know yourself, love yourself, get that energy to that, heightened, optimized, beautiful level that everybody benefits. Projectors are here for the other. We're primed to understand the other. So we tend to be the therapists or the managers or like in HR or the ones who learn all the personality tests, the certified coaches, because we're so interested in the other.
That's really cool.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
What's Carrie?
Carrie's a generator.
Okay.
Obviously.
See, that's not obvious to me because she's like a lifelong learner too.
Oh yeah, but she's the energy like sacral generator. We're the same.
See, like I feel like I have so much more to learn here.
Well, and this is just one layer. I always call it, I don't know why I use a layer cake as the example, but type is like the top layer of the layer cake. And there's so much more nuance. So, you could read the really high level pieces of what it means to be a generator and be like, I don't know if I resonate with that, or a manifesting generator. And then we find out your profile and other parts of your design. And it's like, well, that makes sense because you take actually a lot more time than other generators or MGs to make decisions. Mm-hmm. Or there might be different pieces, like you need to gather more information before you're comfortable moving forward, or whatever it is.
It's like mind blowing.
I know it is. So like, as you mentioned that this is it's a really big topic and like you're constantly learning, right? And you've been in this for years and you're still learning. So we've talked about like how it relates to the real estate space. Is there anything else, if you could choose something that you really want everyone to know about human design? Like, what would that be? Like, what are you thinking? I really like to share this.
Well, first and foremost, I think if you're listening to this or if you've been listening to this podcast and you've heard human design and there's a ping to check it out, dive in, go in with curiosity. There is so much free content online now where you can gather a really solid foundation. Because I think if there's a pull for it, there's something here for you to learn. I would also say that human design is for everyone. I always joke that we hold this system lovingly and loosely. There's no dogma. There's no truth with a capital T. It does ask you to be a bit open-minded. But there is something I think that can be learned and gleaned from this system for everybody. And third, it's an experimental system. It's subjective, it's archetypal, and it's experimental. There's a bunch of fancy words to just say it's meant for you to go out and make your own meaning of it. And so there's really an element of play with this system. And so I just invite people into that process of play and of experimenting and see how that brings you closer to yourself and to your family, to your kids, to your spouses, to your parents, to your loved ones.
That's fun. I feel like Mark and I like we need to dive into it more. But like after we had that session with you, I was like, yeah, I feel like I understand him better. And like, I think he understands me a little bit better, but I'm like, we for sure need to like be studying our charts a little bit more on a regular basis to like make it really have like long-term lasting impact in our household.
Like using that like in our family has been really helpful, understanding my husband and then my daughter too. My daughter's a triple split. So my husband and I are, much more reserved as far as the social aspect. So kind of like learning that about her too. And like what that all meant was like, oh, this like makes sense. Okay. So now I can support her in this way. So it really is this journey of figuring it out and then how we can help each other and show up for each other as we go. And gosh, I mean, I'm obsessed. Now I just want to read about it. Walk the rest of the day off and just go down a rabbit hole.
That's in your design, by the way, both of yours.
It's not my fault, Betsy. Okay, so if someone's wanting to learn more about this, where would you send them to you? So there's a lot of like free resources online. Like, where would you send them next?
I mean, I think you can search so much on Instagram these days. I try to share content on my Instagram. That's where I'm pretty active. But that there's so many resources there. Even a quick Google at this point will direct you to some really decent resources. There's also some great books. I can't remember the actual title of it off the top of my head. But a woman named Rachel Lieberman wrote a really beautiful human design book recently that I highly recommend to those who want to get started. I can send you that after if you want to put it in the show
We
notes.
can pop it in the show notes.
We can put it on social too.
Yeah, I'll send a couple of resources. There's some great books. Man, the resources in the last few years, I would say, pick your platform and go. If you're on TikTok, if you're on podcasts, if you're on Instagram, just search the hashtag human design, and you are going to be able to scroll for hours.
Yeah. So make sure you have hours.
Yes.
I'm only kidding. Those distractions that we always talk about. This is your distraction that we were giving you today.
It's the story of my life. Well, Maggie, where can everybody find you?
I'm mostly active on Instagram at Maggie Hilpisch. My last name is Hilpisch. And you can find me on my website too, MaggieHilpisch.com. Those are the two places I'm most active. I share weekly transit updates and my email list. And I try to share as much resources as I can on Instagram specifically.
You put out good emails. I love your emails.
Can I just mention, I'm so glad that you just mentioned that you sent emails.
It's a hill we've gone to die on.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, I'm going to subscribe to your email list, though.
Yes, I love it.
Definitely.
Email is, I still think email is kind of king.
It is.
Yeah, it has the best ROI of any marketing that you can do.
We're going to end this talking about email. I need to get booted off the podcast now.
Turn every show around into email.
I just try to. Thank you so much for being on. This was fun and informative, and this is great. I'm going to dive in more.
And we appreciate your flexibility with our technical difficulties.
Oh my God. Yeah, this was so fun. Thank you so much for inviting me on too. It was such a joy to chat with the two of you. And I love the work that you're putting out here. And it's so wonderful.
Thank you, Maggie.
Yeah.
Well,
all right, bus bench babes.
Mic drop moment. Until next time, bus bench babes.
Remember to keep your face off a bus bench.
And keep being the badass boss babes that you are.
Okay, girls, are you feeling as inspired as we are? We're over here cheering you on because you just finished another episode of the Girl, Get Your Face Off a Bus Bench podcast.
If you want more, head over to girlgetyourfaceoffabusbench.com for show notes and more episodes. And don't forget to subscribe and leave us a 5-star review. They mean the world to us, and they're what keep us going.
Girl, thanks for being here.